Robert's life was clean. He never looked on the seedy side, and was the type of boy that any mother or dad would be proud to call their own.
Just now, a shocking truth about Robert Wadlow, the tallest man to ever live, has come to light. Alton, Illinois may seem like a quiet town, but the heartbreaking story of Robert's short, tragic life is anything but peaceful. How did a boy who once sold lemonade on the streets grow into a giant who captured the world's attention, only to face unimaginable struggles? Why did his height, which made him famous, also bring him so much pain? Tune in as we reveal the devastating final days of Robert Wadlow and the one moment that changed everything. The astonishing story of Robert Wadlow. Alton, Illinois is a small town located in the southwestern part of the state, right along the Mississippi River. It's a quiet place known for its relaxed atmosphere and friendly people. While the town welcomes new businesses that help the local economy, much of Alton still prefers to hold on to its traditional charm, which makes it feel like a step back in time. But beneath its quiet surface, Alton hides a secret, one that, when discovered, could change everything about the town. Soon, the truth will come out. In February of 1918, amidst the global attention on World War in Europe, a remarkable event took place in Alton. Harold and Addie Wadlow celebrated the birth of their first child, a boy they named Robert Pershing Wadlow. Unbeknownst to them at the time, their son was destined to grow and eventually become the tallest person in recorded history, a fact that would shape his life and legacy in extraordinary ways. Unfortunately, Robert's life was short. He passed away at the young age of 22 in 1940. He's buried in Upper Alton Cemetery, next to his father, Harold, and his brother, Eugene. His grave marker simply reads "At rest," but Robert's legacy remains larger than life, even today. But this wasn't the most surprising thing about Robert's early years. At the age of 12, while attending Milton Elementary School, Robert weighed 240 pounds and stood about 7 feet tall. His classmates were much shorter, but Robert still enjoyed playing childhood games like baseball, basketball, and football, just like any other kid. He even dreamed of turning his hobbies into a future career. It was hard for us to see Robert as just another kid at school. Even though he played games and joined activities with the other children, his larger size made things like sitting at a desk a real challenge. He was a bright student, consistently excelling in his assignments and popular among his peers. Known for his politeness, he harbored grand ambitions for his future. In the late 1920s, people started using the word giant a lot more often. It wasn't directly because of Robert, but because of a famous boxer from Italy named Primo Carnera. Primo was huge, standing almost 6.5 feet tall and weighing 265 pounds. He quickly became popular in the media, often photographed next to smaller men to show how big he was. In 1930, to sell more tickets for a fight in St. Louis, promoters arranged for a picture of Primo with Robert. Primo didn't mind standing next to a kid for a photo, but he was surprised to find that 12-year-old Robert was already 4 inches taller than him. This was a bit embarrassing for Primo, who would soon be the tallest heavyweight champion ever, but he was still shorter than this young boy. Later that year, Robert went to Barnes Medical Hospital in St. Louis to figure out why he was growing so fast. Doctors discovered that his pituitary gland, which controls growth, was working overtime. They talked about surgery as an option, but the risks were too high. The operation could have been dangerous or even life-threatening. Since Robert was healthy and sharp-minded for his size, they decided it was better for him to continue life without surgery. Back in his hometown of Alton, Robert lived a mostly regular life. He joined the Boy Scouts and the local YMCA. Even at summer camp, he tried to fit in, though his height always made him stand out. He could casually rest his arm on the roof of a cabin. As he moved on to junior high and then senior high school, Robert just kept getting taller. But this wasn't the hardest part for him. Everyone at school remembered the tall, blond boy with a shy smile and blue eyes. He would turn bright red when the other boys teased him, but he always took it in good humor. In the halls of Alton High School, where young minds buzzed with the energy of learning and youth, there was one student who seemed untouched by the usual tumult of teenage life. Robert was his name, known for his towering height and the calm, gentle aura that surrounded him. To those who saw him daily, his demeanor suggested a deep serenity, as if the waves of life's challenges washed over him without leaving a trace. During those days, a student teacher, fresh and eager, joined the staff. Tasked with teaching in various classrooms, the young educator found themselves in Robert's class one unexpected morning. The reasons behind this temporary assignment have faded into the mist of memory, overshadowed by the vivid image of Robert entering the room. As he settled into his seat, his legs stretched out, showcasing his enormous gray shoes that seemed to command immediate attention. On that day, the lesson plan became a blur, overshadowed by the quiet presence of the calm, tall teenager whose simple act of sitting down could capture all focus in the room. He pulled out a piece of paper, and his hand covered almost the entire thing as he started writing. As the class progressed, the student teacher felt a pull of curiosity and moved closer to Robert. The object of this curiosity was the pencil in Robert's hand, which appeared unusually tiny given the size of his hands. Upon closer inspection, it was confirmed. The pencil was indeed of regular size, merely dwarfed by the scale of his large fingers, an ordinary item transformed into a novelty by his extraordinary proportions. The paper looked small in his hands, yet it was a standard-sized sheet. He couldn't remember the lesson he was supposed to teach that day. As time passed, it became difficult to explain why Robert wasn't playing basketball for the school. Although Robert was eager to play, there were concerns about potential injuries. Plans were made to buy him shoes and take him to other schools for games. However, finding shoes that fit was a significant challenge. By the time they found the right pair, the basketball season had already ended. Now let's see how Robert's school days were filled with big challenges and big achievements. From school benches to business deals, Robert had to take a break from school for a whole semester because of a foot infection. Luckily, he caught up quickly and graduated from Alton High School in January 1936. To make his graduation cap and gown, they had to use 14 square yards of fabric. He was 8 feet 3.5 inches tall, making him the tallest person ever to graduate high school. After finishing high school, Robert went on to study at Sherdloff College, which wasn't far from Alton. It was a good choice since it had a long history and was close to home. His plan was to earn a degree and then go to law school. He did well academically, but the icy walkways in Illinois winters made it hard for him to move between buildings safely. Like most boys his age, Robert loved to play jokes on people. One of his favorites was putting your hat somewhere so high up that you couldn't reach it. While he got in trouble a few times, it was never anything serious. The people of Alton were used to seeing Robert around. To them, he was just another young man, even though visitors to the town often did double takes when they saw his size. Life took an unexpected turn for Robert. After just one semester, he left college to pursue business opportunities. His first encounter with the company came when his father brought him there to have custom shoes made. Robert's feet were so large that special molds were necessary to accommodate his size, making his shoes a remarkable feat of customization. Robert had exceptionally large feet, wearing a size 27 shoe. Although his father thought promoting him would be beneficial, the company chose a subtler approach. For several years, they created posters featuring his picture and shoe size. Additionally, one of his shoes was sent to various stores to be displayed in their windows. This unique display strategy successfully captured the attention of many. Later, discussions were held with Robert's father about establishing a more official, long-term partnership. By that time, Robert's shoe size had astonishingly grown to 37.5. The task at hand was to determine how this unique feature could be leveraged to the company's advantage. In the mid-1930s, Robert and his father Harold traveled as representatives of Peter's Shoe Company from St. Louis. Whenever they arrived in a new town, the initial task was to meet with local shop owners to arrange Robert's display at their stores, either inside or outside. Harold would typically give a brief 10 to 15-minute talk about Robert's incredible growth. Following the talk, they would depart, leaving the store owners to engage with the crowd drawn by Robert's presence. Now, Robert was usually calm and easygoing, but there was one thing that really upset him. While walking through a crowd, holding his dad's shoulder on one side and mine on the other, sometimes people would sneak up behind him and pinch or kick him just to see if he was real or walking on stilts. As Robert grew older, his large feet made walking increasingly difficult. He couldn't walk normally and had to swing his feet forward. When staying in small hotels, an amusing issue arose. Robert enjoyed bending down to peek into the small windows above other guests' doors out of curiosity. He needed gentle reminders to keep moving to avoid disturbing the other guests. Even with all the challenges, Robert lived with a lot of dignity. He never got into any trouble and was the kind of son any parent would be proud of. His family kept his life private and made sure he grew up as normally as possible. Robert had 4 younger siblings, Eugene, Helen, Betty, and Harold Jr., and they all grew to be normal heights. None of his relatives, either before or after him, ever experienced the kind of unusual growth that Robert did. But despite all that, Robert's birthdays were always a big deal. His family made sure to celebrate them as special occasions, just like any other family would. Robert and his family would often attend events where they'd be seen and have their pictures taken. However, outside of these occasions, both in the past and today, they always preferred to keep their personal lives private, and people have respected that choice. Robert traveled all over the country, but he always looked forward to coming back to his hometown, Alton, to spend time with his family. He was very active in his community, taking part in many local activities. One thing he really enjoyed was working with a youth group called the Demolay Society. He was so dedicated that on his 21st birthday, they held a special celebration for him, marking his final year of eligibility. After that, he joined the Franklin Masonic Temple, where he continued to be involved in his community. One interesting fact about Robert was that he needed a custom-made ring, size 25, which is much larger than the average men's size of 8.5 to 13. This ring became one of his most treasured possessions. At the Masonic Lodge, Robert's presence was highly valued, and because of his extraordinary height, they even made a special chair for him so he could be comfortable during meetings. Next, Robert steps out into the world, where his height brings him fame and adventures. Inside the tours and triumphs of Robert Wadlow, Robert's stature became even more apparent when he sat in a chair. His height towered over others, a fact that was not just noted in his school days, but also became a part of his later life. After graduating from the University of Missouri in 1939, one individual started working with the International Shoe Company. A part of their job involved accompanying Robert and his father, Harold, on tours. These tours included a unique act where a silver dollar was placed on Robert's head. Spectators were then challenged to reach for the coin, a nearly impossible task given that Robert stood close to 7 feet tall, making each attempt a spectacle of its own. Even though the coin was out of reach for anyone, Robert would sometimes lean down just a bit, giving the impression that they might have a chance to grab it. As a good-natured gesture, a dollar was still offered to participants so they wouldn't feel embarrassed. Robert always dressed impeccably for these events and frequently checked his reflection in mirrors to ensure he looked sharp. He held a firm belief in maintaining a clean and neat appearance in public. But this wasn't the most surprising part. What many people didn't realize was how much Robert went out of his way to connect with others, especially kids. His life was full of moments where he touched the hearts of those who were lucky enough to meet him. Robert relished the company of women and enjoyed spending time with them. Group outings were common, featuring trips to the theater or visits to clubs. These evenings typically began with a pleasant dinner and concluded with dancing. With his excellent sense of humor, Robert always managed to make everyone laugh, ensuring a fun atmosphere. He had a particular fondness for desserts, often ordering a milkshake in nightclubs and sipping it carefree. His meals were straightforward, mirroring what others ate, and these moments were enjoyed by all. Despite his fame, Robert never exploited it for personal gain. On June 27, 1940, during what would be his last checkup at Barnes Hospital, Robert's height was recorded at 8 feet 11.9 inches, and he weighed 439 pounds. This confirmed him as the tallest person ever known in history, and he was still growing. 2 days later, a tour across the northern and northeastern United States began. By July 4th, the group was in Manistee, Michigan for the National Forest Festival. Although Robert mentioned feeling unwell, the planned activities continued. During a parade, concerns about his health grew, leading to an immediate departure from the event to seek medical attention. It was discovered that a recent adjustment to his ankle brace had caused an infection, but this wasn't the worst part. Despite undergoing a minor surgery and receiving blood transfusions, Robert struggled with high fevers. Tragically, he passed away in the early hours of July 15, 1940, in Manistee, Michigan. Over time, Robert became more of a historical figure, a part of stories about extraordinary people. However, in his hometown of Alton, and among those who knew him personally, Robert is remembered not just for his height, but for his kindness and friendly nature. To the public, he might have seemed like a spectacle, but to us, he was simply a friend whose height was just one part of who he was. He had grown used to people staring at him. It happened often, and while it wasn't pleasant, he had learned to accept it. Sometimes people would say things that were unkind, but long ago, he made the choice not to let it affect him. He knew the real issue wasn't their words. It was that they spoke without thinking. He often wished he could blend in like everyone else. His height made him stand out, and that wasn't something he enjoyed. He also hoped his younger brother wouldn't grow as tall as he had. He believed life might be easier for him if he didn't face the same challenges. Did Robert's unique challenges shape him into the kind-hearted individual remembered by many? Or might they have masked deeper struggles? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.